Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you how to make brake lines. So buckle your seatbelt because this is going to be a wild ride. Alright, let's get started. In order to make brake lines, you're going to need some brake line flaring tools. This one is by OTC 6502. It's pretty complete and it's got everything you're going to need. You will also need some brake line that I have here and some fittings. These are 3/16. This is the most common size on automobiles. Also, there is 1/4 inch, which is just a little bit larger. These are on 99% of cars and trucks, you're going to see 3/16 and 1/4 inch brake lines. There are plenty of other sizes, but not really used on cars and trucks too much. And out of the two, 3/16 is the more popular one, so that's what I'm going to be showing you today. This brake line is actually steel. It's copper-coated steel. I just have it laying around, but I'm not going to use this on anybody's car. I really recommend you get copper-nickel alloy brake lines. Copper brake lines are far superior. They bend easier. They're much easier to work with. They last longer. This steel brake line really tends to rust. I've actually had to. It was coated in rust. It's never been used, but it's been sitting around for a while, and it's already rusty from humidity in my outside garage. So I actually cleaned off all the rust, and it's just not that great. But I'm going to use it for a demonstration. It's in addition to not being easy to bend, it's also a little bit harder to make the flares on your fittings. So let's get started with the tools. First thing you're going to want to do is cut your brake line to length, and so you're going to use this tubing cutter here. You're just going to put it on the end inside this jaw. It's got rollers and a blade, and then you'll tighten down the thumb screw. Tighten it down, not too tight, but tight enough that the blade starts cutting into it. Rotate it, tighten the thumb screw a little more, rotate it, and the steel is more difficult to work with on a copper line. Copper nickel brake line, this is a little bit smoother. Got our line cut. I'm going to cut it to length, and if you're making a bent line, which most brake lines do have some bends, you want to be mindful of these fittings. They don't go around a bend, so you need to have these fittings placed where you want them before you make your bends. After you've got a nice end cut on the end of the brake line, we're going to use this deburring tool. This is going to clean out the inside. These blades, you're going to stick it in here, push it in, and rotate it. And it's going to clean out the burrs and make a nice smooth finish on the inside of the tube. So in addition to cleaning up the edge, it's also making it just a little bit thinner, and that will make it easier to form the flare. And then another way to be successful at this is to just take a metal file around the outside of the edge. That's going to make a nice clean edge. I don't have a file handy, so we're going to proceed without it. Okay, next we're going to grab this clamp. That's a little vise. One end of it opens like this, so you can put your line in. We're going to want to put it in the 3/16. That's this one. And then we're also going to need the fitting for 3/16, which is right here. I really haven't used any other ones besides the 3/16 and the 1/4 inch. I mean, there's just no reason. So on this particular setup, you're going to want to put the tubing into the clamp, and you want it flush with this right here. So I'm going to make that flush. You can see right there. And then tighten it down. So we've got that sticking out the right amount. And we're going to tighten these thumb screws to make the clamp. Hold this line. You don't want this too tight because it can deform the brake line, and you won't be able to move your fittings around very easily. But you do want it tight enough that this isn't going to move because we're going to be pressing on this. Alright, next we're going to use our flaring adapter. And this end is going to go into the end of the brake line. And then this little press tool goes over the clamp. It's got these openings that allow you to put it down. Got to unscrew this. Okay, and then you rotate it so that these grab onto the clamp. And you want to make sure this isn't cockeyed in here because you'll get a bad fitting, bad flare. Okay, once you're satisfied that it's straight, you can begin to tighten this. That's going to make the first part of our double flare. It's bending the end of the brake line. You just want to turn it until it no longer turns. There's no reason to keep cranking down on it. Once it stops, it's done. Then you can take this off. You can remove this. We've finished with it. And that's the first part of our flare. And then to make the double flare, which is the standard, we're just going to push this in with no adapter, and it's a cone shape, and it's going to make an inverted flare. So we'll put it back on, no adapter, turn it down so that it contacts the end of the brake line. Again, you want this to be straight, not crooked. As you start tightening it, it's going to deform the metal end of the brake line into a double flare. Same thing, once it stops, it's done. You can put a little bit of, they make brake line lubricant, I think, but you can also just put a drop of brake fluid to make this smoother and easier. I don't use brake fluid for this because brake fluid is really hard to clean up once you get it everywhere, and it also strips paint really bad. So you want to be really careful with brake fluid. So I'm going to loosen up these wing nuts. Take out the end. Here's our double flare. And you want to inspect the end of it. You want to look for any imperfections, holes, anything that would cause it not to seal. If it's crooked or if it's oblong shaped, you want it nice and round and be able to make a nice seal. Like I said, this is steel. I'm not going to use it. Just using it for demonstration. So I'm going to put the fitting down. And then this is going to screw into maybe a brake caliper or union like this one. And when you screw this in, we have to tighten this nut pretty tight. That way this brake line will make a fluid seal, because it actually deforms the metal again to make a nice seal. Okay, so that's it. And then before you make the other end, you have to make sure you've got your other fitting on this, because once the fitting's made, or once the flare's made, you won't be able to get the fitting on. So you've got to have both on. And then if you're going to have, for ease, if it's still a straight line, you can keep them down here. But then if you're going to make your bends, you want to have this fitting on the other side of the bend, because once you turn this fitting's not going to go past that turn. So you want to have these in position, because the last thing you want to do is get it all perfect and then have to undo it and try to redo it. So there you go. I hope this was helpful. And I really like this tool from OTC. I'll put a link in the description to some fittings, some good quality brake line, and this tool set. All right. Well, it takes a little bit of practice to make good quality brake lines that don't leak on the first try. But if you stick with it and get some decent tools, you will have success. I hope this was informative, and if you like the channel, please subscribe. Thanks for watching.